Well, now that CES is over, the year can officially begin.
We can't tell you all of what happened at CES, but we've got some juicy highlights.
Then, a peek inside Washington as the Trump tracking officially begins.
Then, the news on the people and deal front. Facebook is hiring a TV anchor, and Cheddar is diving into the hive.
I'm Steve Rosenbaum.
And I'm Saul Hansell. And this
is Hacking TV. And the year has officially begun. Welcome, Saul.
Welcome, Steve. So we both escaped hours of lines and had to endure just a little bit of snow, at least out here in beautiful New Jersey.
I attended CES virtually.
Yes.
I was virtually there.
Which probably means like standing with 3D glasses and just like waiting around and seeing like the backs of people and like really exhausted people with overfull like messenger bags.
So if there's one company that you think is the hit of CES in our hacking TV world, do you have somebody you'd like to nominate?
Well, I mean, the hit of CES was exactly what we predicted last week, which is Amazon, right? The thing that everybody's excited about is Alexa everywhere. And a bunch of the companies in our world are connecting Alexa in some way, mostly lamer than they should, to their various gadgets.
So there was an article about a newscaster who was telling a story about a woman, a young girl who asked the box we'll call A for the purposes of this recording about a dollhouse, and the dollhouse was ordered. And I was telling my wife about this story and used the name of the device and the dollhouse in a sentence. And A went and tried to order our family a dollhouse.
Maybe A knows more than you about what you really need now that your kids are all off to college.
Since I have no girls in the family, the dollhouse was never really on the agenda, but it was like an inside baseball moment, and it was very odd. Well, but I wouldn't say to me the star of the show, in terms of the OTT hacking TV world, was Dish. I mean, they just were out there slinging out stuff. No pun intended.
Not intended?
Well, I mean, let's start with the Air TV device. I have been a cable cutter over-the-air user of TiVo now for, I guess, 4 years. And I've been surprised that it's taken this long for people to integrate OTT feeds and antennas into one device. But Dish...
So just explain to people. So the Air TV is yet another box that Dish, the satellite company, which also owns the Sling TV service and box company, is making. And what's different about the Air TV box than the other ones?
My TiVo today, my Romeo, has an antenna on the back, records over the air, ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, and then records from the internets, the stuff that we get from Netflix and Amazon and everybody else. And it makes for a pretty diverse collection of signals.
And now the Air TV box, I don't think, at least at this moment, has the DVR function. They've got a bunch of other DVR initiatives. But I think what it does is something that is either brilliant or lame. You don't have to go and switch the input to the antenna from your streaming TV box. So Sling is selling a $30 or $40 a month streaming TV package, which you can get on this box, and they don't have the rights to all of the local stations. They've got Fox and NBC, but not the other ones. So now you can get over-the-air TV. Again, how hard is it to push the input button on your remote? Well,
so let's leave it at, because we have a lot to cover in the show. Good for them. They continue to be innovative. Sling continues to make noise. I'm not yet so impressed that I'm going to order one, but I'm now leaning toward wanting to play with one, which I have not been at before. So that's interesting. But then they had another announcement, right?
They've got a bunch of things. So they make DVRs that compete with TiVo called Hopper, and they've got a new Hopper that does something or another.
You can record up to 16 shows at the same time.
Oh boy. So why at this point in the world of streaming, we need DVRs? We don't.
But hold on. Come on, Saul, admit it. Every now and then there's a moment where 16 of your favorite shows are on at exactly the same time. And
this never had YouTube was made for.
All right. So I sense that the Hopper is not your favorite device.
I feel like DVRs are the pinnacle of TV technology of the 20th century. By
the way, just hold on. So for our listeners who are waiting for Saul and I to have our first big disagreement of 2017, mark the calendar. We're about to have our first of many. I think you're totally wrong.
So I think that time shifting and pausing live TV is as good an idea as it ever was. But we're in a world where we are quickly moving to everything as IP and streamed, and that should be in the cloud, right?
Here's why I disagree.
Okay.
When the file's sitting on my hard drive in my bedroom or living room, I can pause, fast forward, skip ahead. I can do all kinds of things. Once I'm getting a stream, the evil creatures that run the business get to say, we choose to have you wait 3 minutes while we run this commercial pod. And I can't, there's no way for me to jump ahead. I love the jump ahead.
Well, there should be a way for you to jump ahead, but here's what we've seen. So you may well have some nostalgia for the world of old Napster, where you could just have all the music you ever wanted for free. It turns out that most people have decided that the damn convenience of Spotify and friends is worth $10 a month, and they're willing to put up with a certain amount of crap from, the evil media tycoons. And so once the evil media tycoons figure out that what you want to do is watch live shows or watch streaming shows, pause, go to the bathroom, forward fast, and rewind, people will just do that. And then I will dig a hole and bury my TiVo in it, but not until. All right, so now just to be clear, the guys at Sling are playing both sides. So they have the Hopper, but they also have a cloud DVR that they are appending to their Sling TV paid service, and they've been talking it up as if it's the biggest thing going on, right? So they see that they have a box for you and they have a streaming service for me, and neither of us pay them any money right now.
If you would have asked me 2 years ago what the likelihood was that Sling TV would be the leading innovator in groovy OTT box technology, I would have bet every penny in my piggy bank that you were wrong. But they, CES is their time of year. That's when they...
Well, look, they've been, they're the Avis that tries harder in this world, and they have, they bought the Slingbox company, and they were the first major, pay TV provider to come out with, a cable over the air. DirecTV came out with one, more recently, and, I keep saying that this is going to be the year that we're going to see Comcast do the same thing. No announcements yet, but they're gonna.
All right, so moving on to your favorite topic, the one where you get to beat on me, ruthlessly. Hulu is now saying they're big into VR.
Hulu is saying, quote, we're spending a lot of time in incubation, and we're setting our expectations appropriately, right? This is about early adopters and a lot of people who come from gaming. It's not for mom and pop and Cedar Rapids, Iowa yet. So
I just, given the fact that Hulu has yet to do anything that makes me feel like I have to get them on any box I own, it seems like they're going further down the rabbit hole here by doing stuff that like an even smaller number of people are going to be interested in.
Well, look, again, so as we did last time, my theory is the people who are most positioned to do good things in with VR are the people who have really high budgets. So HBO and Netflix and Hulu and Amazon want to be HBO and Netflix, so they need to go and play around with this stuff, because if they can go figure out House of Cards or Game of Thrones in 365 degrees, then 360 degrees. That's the economics.
But hasn't Netflix said they're not even doing VR? Hasn't that, or did they?
Well, that's because Reed is smarter than everybody else. But if it's going to work, it's going to work from the top down.
All right. So what? So this may be the place where we agree. Are you racing out to sign up for Sony's 4K streaming service?
Well, the last streaming service, and they've had many over the years, PlayStation TV, was even before the Sling TV, but was twice as expensive with half as many channels. So, following on great offerings like that, the weird thing is, as best as I can tell, they basically are saying, if you, buy a Sony TV instead of a Samsung like everybody actually buys, and you want to watch movies from Sony Pictures, which at best are a fifth of the movies that anybody might care about, you can get Sony Pictures movies on your Bravia Sony television. How many people are excited about that?
You know who's shaking in his boots over this? Mark Cuban. Because they're going headlong after HDNet, which has been a massive...
HDNet changed its name
to Access
5 years ago.
Yeah. I never understand when people roll out a single delivery format network and don't look in the rearview mirror to see that just doesn't work.
It's like, we're Sony, we're irrelevant, but we have a couple things we know how to do. And, we make a lot of cameras, and we're probably pretty good at 4K, right? So, and we happen to own a movie studio that exists, so let's just take the stuff we've got and talk about it. Otherwise no one would come to their press conference, and
so that's amusing but a little grim. All right, so what about this?
Isn't all of CES amusing but a little grim? Sorry.
Yeah, no, so Comcast is booting up this direct to consumer OTT service for content players. Did you understand that? I mean, again, there was a lot of...
Comcast, so they're the largest cable conglomerate. They own NBC and Universal Pictures and a chunk of Hulu and a whole bunch of other shit. And that's not enough. So they have this little outfit called The Platform and some other stuff they've bought, which sells streaming video services to publishers. So they are reconfiguring that so that if you and I want to take Hacking TV to be a 24-hour fee-based over-the-top service, they will give us all the technology we need so that we can, be out there competing with everybody else. And they basically compete with Major League Baseball and Bright Cove and all those fun guys. And,
right. And this
why it's worth the bother for Cable Town or whatever they are, I don't know, but they are.
So among other things, I just think, a little known group called Comcast Wholesale and The Platform have rolled out this thing called the Video Platform, and that's their unified system for distribution of broadcast and digital signals. So, wholesale.
And then, and they also, they put a lot of money into their cloud-based set-top box, the X1, which is significant in that it's just a gussied-up Roku kind of thing. It doesn't have all the stuff in it that your typical $600 Motorola set-top box used to have, but because it's connected to the cloud, it actually does more tricks. And so they've started saying, hey, we are going to go sell this to all the other cable companies who we don't directly compete with. And they got Taker from Shaw, which is one of the cable companies in Canada.
No, they're big. I mean, they're a big player in Canada, but I'd love to be in the room where you're the decision maker and you say, well, we got to do something with our set-top boxes, and you look at all of the various technology companies that are out there and you pick Comcast because it's the best, because it's the cheapest, because they're paying you money. It seems a little bit. I mean, I happen to think the X1 platform is actually pretty darn good, but I gotta believe it's a little bit of deal with the devil.
Well, it depends. Because the way cable has worked, right? These guys don't exactly compete. There's only one cable company in each town, so Comcast at some level likes Charter better than they like Verizon. And they've had cable. I mean, one of the interesting things is Cable Labs has been the standards body that could have been developing stuff like this, but in reality, Comcast is further ahead. The X1. I mean, the thing about the X1 is it's a thing that they really have deployed and are rolling out to 10 or 20 million people. So it's a thing that works, more or less. And I went and looked at it a couple years ago, and it's got, there's a whole computer in there, and there's a browser in there, and it's got some tricks that you can do to interweave interactive web-based stuff.
Can you speak to it? Can you say X1, turn on my TV?
They are selling it that way. How good it is, I don't know, but that's a cloud-based thing anyway. How good are they at cloud-based speech recognition? That's a tough market right now, but
and by the way, when they made the announcement, they said that one of their big partners was a company called UITV, YOU.I, and I went and pulled up their site and took a look at it. I can't quite figure out what they do, but it says Comcast Technology Solutions expands the video platform, and then there's a list of powering experiences for TBS, TNT, Chorus, Crackle. Never heard of UI.
They probably live in the shadow of Comcast.
Here, let's just look at the About page just for a second to see if we know who these people are. The About page does not come up. That's helpful. All right, never mind. I literally have never heard of these guys.
They're in Ottawa, so it's probably a bunch of ex-BlackBerry people.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder how long they've been around. I wonder if it's Comcast money. All right, well, no, it doesn't. All right, so moving on. We're moving now to the to what I suspect will be the rather regular Trump section of this show, just because there's all kinds of changes. And so in our first look, AT&T and Time Warner, unclear depending on what version of Trump tweeting you read, whether he's in favor or against said merger. I mean,
last I saw, he stayed reasonably against, which is interesting because the government case against it is a little weak. And one of the interesting things that came out this week is in some filing, AT&T said they don't have to ask the FCC for permission. They only have to ask the Justice Department.
Right, because they're not transferring the FCC licenses.
Right, because Time Warner doesn't have very many FCC licenses. They got out of the cable business. All they have is a couple of satellite transponders that they don't really need. And, Ted Turner's old TV station in Atlanta, WTBS. And who the hell cares about that? So to get an $80 billion deal done, they can close WTBS or sell it or whatever they want. And if they do that and they don't have any licenses, the FCC, which has interpreted itself as having a reasonably broad mandate, at least under Democrats, won't have to say anything. And at least the analysis goes, the Justice Department's not going to say anything because AT&T and Time Warner don't compete with each other at all, right? So there's sort of no law against a company that does one thing buying a company that does something completely different. Doesn't make for monopolies. Now, vertical integration, there's issues with vertical integration, but at least the Bloomberg article that we were looking at says the Justice Department's never turned down a merger on this basis.
Right. So all they really have to do is just sell the licenses to a non-competitive broadcaster and then do a license deal so they can continue to have,
yeah, and they don't even need those. There's nothing that's essential to running HBO and the other real assets of Time Warner in any of those licenses, right? They can hire a vendor. It's WTBS hasn't been relevant in a long time, right? It probably makes a buck, but it doesn't matter.
All right, so moving on to the next Trump story, and I got to say, I chose this one as much as anything else just because I like the graphics so much.
Okay.
The Wall Street Journal style pen and ink picture of Trump, hair a flurry and lips of hollering. I just thought was for those of you listening and not watching the video on the podcast, you'll have to just imagine a fabulous kind of parody of a Wall Street Journal sketch. But this in fact is, this is the Internet Archive, which is actually an extraordinarily impressive organization in its own right that is now built and is launching the Trump Archive, a searchable collection of videos that already contains more than 700 broadcasts that date back to 2009.
And they've done, among the many things the Internet Archive has done, right? So they take snapshots of all of the web pages, or lots and lots of web pages, but they also have been recording TV news and from lots of both network and local stations and archiving that. So if you care, you can root around and find out what was live at 5 Cincinnati in 2007. 2007.
Now,
and so now they'll be able to.
The irony, of course, is that they've not had to do the Obama files. There isn't a collection of all of Obama's media exposure over the last 8 years. I guess because they didn't feel there was as much of a need to be able to reference different comments or.
Don't know. There's perfectly good thing to have. It's a little more internally consistent. But Obama. Every place I turn, Obama is doing an exit interview. I wouldn't be surprised to see him as guest editor of the New York Times crossword puzzle and publishing his favorite recipes in Good Housekeeping.
Did you see the Vox? Did you see the Vox interview?
The one on healthcare?
Yeah.
I thought that was fabulous.
I thought it was really good. Yeah.
And he said a couple things, not even as strongly as I would, that feel really important in how we, people are and aren't talking about what's going to happen to Obamacare. But
well,
it was very.
I think we know what's going to happen. They're going to repeal it, but not for 2 years and a day until the day after the midterms. So they'll get all the press of having said they repealed it with none of the bad karma of having actually taken away people's health care until after they've gotten their next round of, politicians theoretically in office. And then,
yes, but the thing that most of the stories don't say as loudly and as clearly as could be is the biggest issue isn't tweaking the rules about 26-year-olds or even the very important issue of pre-existing conditions. It's how much money are we going to take from tax dollars and use to subsidize poor people's health care? And that dollar amount, because you could do a lot of shell games and do a lot of other stuff and gut the real substance of the bill, which is we're going to help pay for poor people to have health care, which we didn't used to do.
Yep.
And that's sort of the essential question that is not asked anywhere near as clearly as it could be.
All right, so
And
we have time
journalism criticism.
We have time for 2 more stories.
Okay.
This next one, we knew that Facebook was looking to hire a head of news partnerships. That's been kicking around for a while. I knew some people that were interested in that role. And then they made an announcement, and it was a little, for me anyway, a little bit of a head scratcher. Not who I would have expected.
Campbell Brown is, reasonably competent anchor who was but on CNN and left.
NBC and then CNN.
Okay, and I don't know whether will she do more for Facebook than Katie Couric did for Yahoo. I mean, the job description is completely different,
but let's do them in order. Let's start with Campbell Brown, and then we'll get to Facebook. So you're Campbell Brown. You're on camera. You're well known. You're attractive and smart. You have a good reputation, and you make the decision at this point in your broadcast career that you want to be an off-air network exec of some sort. Like,
right.
That's a little like right there. I'm a little bit like it doesn't seem to me. Maybe I missed the part where her career was in decline and she said, I don't want to do on camera work anymore. But I mean, generally people don't go from in front of the camera to behind the camera. It happens very rarely, right?
Now, I know nothing here, but last week, NBC News hired Megyn Kelly. So it might well be that Campbell Brown, was wanting the positions that they just gave to Megyn Kelly, or was otherwise pissed off at that turn of events, and so had some other thing to do. But I don't know.
And then from Facebook's perspective, and again, I don't know her work, so I could be being pejorative, in which case you can slap my wrist. But like, given the problems they have in the news business, given the debates about fake news and objectivity, and they always have these slightly cagey answers where they say there are teams available on call 24 hours a day. So that means someone's got a pager and it goes off when they have a problem and they have to like I would think they would have a 24/7 newsroom full of really good, engaged, smart, ethically trained, well-led people managing whatever this debate is about the latest shooting or the latest violence or the latest people. Like they still seem like, I see the Campbell, and I know that's not her role, but like I was expecting like a journalism heavy hitter hire. Like I was expecting.
Well, this is more. I mean, I would have expected somebody more like what Twitter had for a while, which was my friend whose name is escaping me from the New York Times, Vivian Schiller. Right? You really want a network deal maker, because the job that they're hiring her for is partner relations to journalism. Someone who's going to go and sit down and work with journalistic organizations to, help explain what the algorithm's doing and get them to use the latest harebrained scheme that Facebook is cooking up and so on. So it's an anchor does a lot of things, but cutting deals isn't really one of them. So
all right, last story, Vanity Fair cheddar. Didn't see this one coming.
Right. So a show that nobody watches is now being distributed on a network that nobody watches.
Saul Hansell making friends all over town.
It all can change, but right now, I mean, have you ever heard anybody in the wild talking about either of those organizations? I mean, people care about Vanity Fair.
I've heard people mention cheddar, but it's always been in relation to a foodstuff, not a network.
Right. And I mean, look, I'm on record as saying that live networks are stupid.
Yes,
and the last thing anybody should start right now is something that's live. So to say we're going to take an hour-long on-demand show, which they've been producing, that you can get on demand wherever you can get it, and to stream it for a particular hour on this other thing is like you're mixing your metaphors.
And with that, ding, 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 we are out of time. So those of you who were not appropriately insulted in this episode, come back again next week and we'll take a swing at you. We haven't even started on Twitter. We could do a whole show on Twitter at this point. So
you can do the show on Twitter by yourself.
Saul, have an excellent week. Hack on.
All right, Steve, and enjoy, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.